Alright guys, welcome to part 3 of our Brick Walls Blue quilt. This will be the third and final video for this series. And today I'm going to show you how to bat and back this quilt. And also the binding. Now the first thing I did was go to the store and I got 6.5 yards of fleece. Now usually for these denim quilts I like to use flannel for the batting, but at my local Walmart they did not have white or cream colored batting. I could have used a colored one, but I just didn't want to. So instead I got this fleece, and if you've ever bought fleece at Walmart, it's very thin compared to the fleece say at Joann Fabrics or Hancock Fabrics. So I think this will work out just fine. So what I did was with my serger, I folded the fleece in half, sewed a seam up the middle, and then I cut the bottom. So I know I'll have a bunch of extra to cut off around the sides, but that's okay because I can reuse that for hot pads or batting for something else. The next thing I like to do is lay our quilt top over top of this, and as you can see my seam from the batting is facing up. That's just a personal preference. I also smoothed out any wrinkles as best I could. Since we're going to tie this together and we're not going to machine quilt it, it's not as imperative to get it completely flat, but you want to try to get it as flat as you can. Alright guys, now that I have my quilt top all smoothed out the best I can, the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and with some safety pins, pin these two layers together, and then I'm going to trim off any excess batting, making it even with the sides of the quilt. I'll be using these large safety pins, so I'm going to be putting these in every other rectangle or square, and then about 5 or 6 just in the middle. Alright guys, so I have this all pinned together, and I actually went through around the edges and I put a pin in every single rectangle or square, and then I have 5 in the middle just to hold that together. And our next step is we're going to go with some scissors and we're going to trim all the way around, cutting off all the excess fleece. Now this does not have to be very pretty. I'm going to have a 2-inch binding on this, so it's going to cover any mistakes or extra fleece that's hanging over. Now that the quilt's all trimmed up, we want to find our center point. So to do that, we're going to fold this into quarters. So first we're going to fold it in half, just like that. And now we're going to fold it in half again the other way. Just like that. Now right here, where there's 2 folds, there's a fold going this way, and then our first fold, that's our center point. And I just like to take a marker and put a mark right there. Now this is a disappearing marker, by the way. Now we just want to open this back up so that our quilt top is facing down and our fleece is facing up. Now you just want to grab your backing piece. Now you could just use fabric from the store, but what I did was use button-up shirts sewed together. I made another template here out of cardboard, and this one's 16 inches by 24 inches. And I used about 30 shirts. If you don't have enough button-up shirts lying around your house like I do, I did also have to go to the Goodwill to pick up a few more. And like I said in my previous video, now they have a 49-cent color tag day. So you could pick up 30 of these for about $15. That's not bad. So what I did with this one, I did the same exact thing by folding it over once and folding it over twice to find the center point. I put a pin in the center on the pretty side of the fabric, and we're going to match that pin with our marker mark on our quilt. So after I matched up my pin with that marker pin, I took the pin out, went through all 3 layers. Now you just want to smooth the back as flat as possible. Now as you can see, my rectangles for these shirts are going vertical. If you wanted to do it horizontal, you would have to get a few more shirts. And I also used the back of the button-up shirts for this project. Now I wouldn't go any smaller than a large men's shirt, just so you know you have enough fabric on the back of the shirts to make these 16 by 24 inch rectangles. Now I do have more smoothing out to do, but what I'm going to do is in the middle of each of these rectangles, when I'm smoothing these out, I'm going to stick a pin through all 3 layers. And also probably around the edges, just to make sure it's nice and secure. For this step, I'm going to use these bent quilting pins, and I just find it easier to go through all 3 layers and not get stuck in the carpet. If you had a nice large spot of linoleum, you could go ahead and use the other ones, but I just find that these are a little bit easier to use. So I'm just going to start in the middle and work my way out while pinning. Now if I didn't mention this before, I use my serger to serge these rectangles together, but if you don't have a serger, just use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alright guys, so I have this all pinned together, and I did not find it necessary to go around the edges and add another set of pins, because the middle of those edge rectangles ended up being pretty close to the edge. Now our next step is to tie these quilts together. So what I'm going to do is, starting from the top, I'm going to roll this quilt up, and I'll meet you over at my table. Our next step we're going to do is we're going to tie these layers together. I'm going to use this crochet thread here, but you could also just use yarn. I don't want the ties to be that noticeable, so that's why I'm going to use this crochet thread. Now I'm starting here at the bottom. I like to start in the middle one first, and about right where we put our pins, somewhere in the middle, that's where we're going to make our ties. So you just want to take this pin out, and for now I'm just going to stick it down here towards the bottom. Now I'm going to do that to all the perimeter rectangles, and that's going to help with our binding later. But our rectangles towards the center, you can just take the pin out. Now I have a crochet needle. I have my thread doubled up here. And you just want to, somewhere in the middle, I'm just going to eyeball this, but you could measure it all out if you want to be very exact. You're going to go down, making sure you go through all 3 layers, and then back up. And I just like to check underneath to make sure that I went through. Ideally, you want about a 1/4 inch. But like I said, you really don't have to be that precise. We're going to pull this through, and we're going to tie it. Now I like to go around here twice. And pull it. You don't want to make it pucker, but you want to make it tight. And then go the other way twice. And pull it. And now our knot's secure. And you just want to trim it off, leaving about a 1/4 inch tail there. Now you're just going to continue that until your quilt is all tied together. And like I said, I'm going to put a tie in the center of every rectangle. So I'll show you how to do that one more time. So I'm going to take out my pin. This is still a perimeter one, so I'm going to move it down towards the bottom here. Kind of eyeball it from your last tie. You're going to go down, back up. I like to feel to make sure I went through all the layers. Then we're going to tie this around twice. That's one. That's two. And now tie the opposite one twice. 1, 2, and pull it tight. And that gives you a nice square knot. Now just clip, leaving about 1/4 to 1/2 inch, and keep on tying. Alright guys, now that I have this all tied together, like I said, I put a tie in the center of each of these rectangles here on the back. Now because I used fleece for the batting, I think that this is plenty to secure this together. However, if you are using batting, I would go ahead and do it every 4 to 6 inches. And what I usually do is just use my hand and then put one like here and then one like over here. Now the next step I'm going to do is the binding. If you end up using the backs of button-up shirts like I did, you can go ahead and just follow along with me. If you're going to use solid fabric, you're going to want to adjust your measurements to follow along. Now when I laid this backing out and pinned them all together, it wasn't that square. So what I did was lay this flat on my floor, and then I went and found the most narrowest piece of the backing showing. And this particular time for me, it was 2.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and trim any of the excess backing fabric off down to 2.5 inches. Now I did not trim this flush before I put this all on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this line and measure out 2.5 inches. And then just cut off any excess. And to cover up this bit right here, what we're going to do is when we make our binding, we're going to fold this over once, matching our raw edge to the edge of our denim, and then fold it over again. So that'll cover this extra little notch that I have. Now you just want to continue to do this all the way down your quilt sides. Alright guys, now that I have this all trimmed to the size I want, the next step is we're going to fold over this binding and complete this quilt. So what I like to do is just take your backing fabric here. We're going to fold it over one time, matching it with the denim, and then fold it over a second time. And I like to put some clips. Now I only have about 100 of these Wonder Clips, so to make this really secure, I'm going to use those sparingly throughout the quilt, and also use some pins. Now when we get to the corner, I've done this technique multiple times to get pretty mitered corners. We're going to fold over our fabric just like normal. We're then going to fold this piece down, making a triangle, and then just continue like we've been doing. Fold it over once, and fold it over twice. And there you can see we have a nice mitered corner, and definitely put a clip there. I might even go ahead and put a pin instead of a clip through all the layers. Just to make sure that that stays. Now you just want to do that to your entire quilt. Alright guys, so I have this all pinned together. Now as you can see right down here, the Wonder Clips really aren't holding it all that well. So maybe just go ahead and use pins all the way around. Now I have my sewing machine set up on a zigzag stitch. My width is 4 and my length is 2. And I'm going to go ahead and just use some black thread. You want to make sure you have a full bobbin on a project this size. Don't forget the back stitch at the beginning and the end. And just start sewing. Now I do like to hold back here and kind of guide the fabric. I'm not pulling, I'm just guiding the fabric through. Alright guys, here I'm coming up onto the corner. You just want to make sure that everything's tucked in and that your mitered corner looks pretty, and then just keep sewing. Next, you want to stop with your needle down, and I like to take just a stitch or two onto the mitered corner fabric. Lift your presser foot and spin, and keep sewing. Now you just want to continue that until your entire binding is sewed on. And now our Brick Wall Blues quilt is finished. After I sewed down the binding, I did go back and sew down these corner flaps, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. And like I said, I used black thread here just because I had a bunch of it. But if you want to use white or a cream color, it probably wouldn't be as noticeable. But I don't really think anybody's going to care if you took the time to make this quilt for them. This is a perfect quilt for a picnic blanket, a beach blanket, a fireworks blanket, or even to keep in your vehicle for those late night trips to the country with your honey. Now this one I'm going to give as a thank you / graduation present to a very good friend of mine who's been very supportive of my YouTube channel from the very beginning. This summer, she gave me boxes and boxes and boxes of cotton fabric, denim, ribbons, binding, just about anything you can think of. And she happens to be graduating college in December. So as a thank you, Brahma, this quilt's for you. So whenever you want to do lunch, this will be waiting for you. I hope you give this project a try. If you like this video and you want to see more of my videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and give it a big thumbs up. If you have a question about this video or any of my other videos, or just have a suggestion for an upcoming video, leave me a comment. Feel free to share this video across your social medias. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.